Hey everybody, Onepeg here with Arn. So how realistic is Tarkov? Tarkov is a game that, according to Battlestate Games, is something that has always strived to be both a realistic shooting simulator and hardcore. Both descriptors being something that is thrown around a lot in this genre as of late. It's no doubt that Tarkov has something unique to it. But when you ask most people that have played this game about how realistic it is, or what in the game in particular is realistic, they have a tendency to not really be able to put a finger on it. They just kind of stare at the screen. So how realistic is Tarkov? Well, I figure breaking this video up into a couple of different parts would probably be the best approach. So first, we'll talk about stuff. Then go on to movement mechanics, and then finally take a look at general combat and see how much of this is actually realistic. Now, full disclosure, I don't have any combat experience. Sure, I love shooting guns like any other dude, but when it comes to actual combat and what these PMCs are trying to simulate, I don't have any personal experience with that. So all of this, I'm relying on people in my community that have kind of chimed in along the way, where I asked them, what about this is realistic for those people that have had some combat training? Stuff, items, things you can collect and hold. In Tarkov, the weapons customization is likely the thing about this game that makes it the most unique. But first, a word from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Yeah, I changed my clothes and did my hair and had a baby and everything just for this ad. But listen, in all seriousness, Raid is a beautiful turn-based RPG with cutting-edge animations and graphics and brilliant special effects. Every single one of their over 300 heroes are unique with their own strengths and weaknesses that you can augment with legendary gear. And I, via this promotion, have a goal of 45 downloads for the next month. That's it. I get to feed my baby for 45 downloads. That's all. But a download is getting the game and playing through the tutorial. Okay? Very recently, Raid released the Artifact Forge, which allows us as players to target specific stat bonuses and further augment our characters the way that we want, as opposed to leaving it up to pure RNG, which saves us time and makes our heroes even stronger. And that's not all. Even more recently, they've introduced a whole slew of new extremely powerful and game-changing champions, and they're currently developing the Doom Tower, a brand new and even more challenging dungeon than anything we've ever seen before. That last one has me pretty stoked. I actually, not gonna lie, I actually play this game a lot. I've got a few hundred hours into it, and I think I've logged in now for like 190 days in a row or something. I know, but I like RPGs, okay? I like RPGs. So here's the deal. Go to the video description, click on the link, and if you're a new player, you're going to get 100,000 silver, 50 gems, 10 mystery shards, and a free rare champion, the Hex Weaver. These artists are doing work. Once you complete the tutorial, all of that stuff will be in your inbox. The little treasure chest in the upper right-hand corner. That's where it's all going to be. If you are someone that actually downloads the game and plays through the tutorial, I will have a special thank you for those people in my next video. That's right. There's gonna be more. Notice the baby, right? The top 10 players that play the most with a new account that they made using the link in the description will have an even more special thank you from me, but only if you use my referral link. And this deal is only good for the next 30 days, okay? So help me reach the goal, yeah? While you're at it, join my clan, Arnie Best Boy, because he is, and I will see you in Raid. Every attachment you can put on a base weapon chassis has an effect on the statistics, from the small and barely noticeable to the game-changing. And I mean game-changing. Take like an SA-58 with an 11-inch barrel and no stock, and try to fire that on full auto and see if you can hold it. And then compare that to an arguable meta SA-58 with a recoil minimizing long barrel stock, foregrip combination, and compensator, and look at that and see that it's completely different. It's night and day. The renderings of these attachments, down to the markings on them, and even the real-life brand and model names of the weapon systems, armor systems, most of the ammunition, most of the bags, and the graphic representation of the reticles, in most cases, are just like their real-life counterparts. Sure, there's things that are a little bit off, but it's a video game, right? For the most part, it's pretty on. Medical items, such as the IFAK, Salewa, and AI2 medical kits, are seen in the real world, just like the MREs and the Iskra lunchboxes and the Alanka chocolate and all of the other items that you can find in the game. They actually exist in the real world and look almost exactly like what has been provided to us in the game. The artistry and attention to detail, in my opinion, in this game is second to none. Even the internals of the guns themselves, the parts that we can't see, are animated by the devs because they believe it should be as authentic as possible. This, obviously, gets a grade of A+, and has not been done, as far as I am aware, as accurately in any game that has come before it. They really are going above and beyond. So, there was something else.
We need you to talk about the recoil. Just talk about the recoil, please, God. Talk about the recoil, Onepeg. Just talk about the recoil, Onepeg.
Fine. I'll talk about recoil. Everyone says that the recoil mechanics of the guns in Tarkov are not realistic in any way, especially when it comes to the spray patterns. As this representative from the Kalashnikov group would tell you, at a range of 100 meters, prone, shooting a stock-ish AK-74M, the only thing you should be trying to full auto in this case is a dinosaur. In Tarkov, this same AK-74M that was tested yielded the following. The difference here is that the guy shooting in the video was using 3 to 5 round bursts, and I was shooting fully auto. But this, to me, looks like a pretty similar tale. Now, of course, this is without any attachments. And the 74M handles considerably better when you deck it out a bit in Tarkov, as we all know. Overall, in regard to the recoil mechanics in Tarkov, I'd rate this, in terms of realism, a C-. The base gun recoil mechanics seem relatively good overall, depending on the gun, without attachments, right? When they're fully kitted out, though, like this 74M is here, the recoil reduction and control that you seem to suddenly be in possession of is pretty crazy. And given the reaction to the recoil of these guns when on the move in Tarkov by a lot of the former military player base, the general consensus is the recoil control is not at all real. At all. Not even a little bit. And these aren't the worst of the movement mechanics, if you want to call them that. You ever seen an AI or player suddenly change direction? Nice, right? The old Fortnite AD spam strafe is strong in the world of Tarkov. Whether this is something the game should keep in it or not isn't really the point. Again, we're talking about realism. It's the age-old debate regarding inertia. Sorry, I should do this. I should do this the right way.
Inertia.
Okay, sorry about that. People in the real world don't just change direction like this instantaneously. There's a period of time that is simulated in most shooters in order to change direction or even just to come to a full stop. You drift a little bit. So in this case, it's an F. There's no slowdown. There's no
Inertia.
drifting really whatsoever. And what makes it even worse is that you still have the ability to sprint at roughly full speed, whether you're carrying 20 kilos or 50. What is realistic is the way that the PMC holds their gun when they move. The hand gestures, how they crouch, go prone, lean with their rifle, etc. The motions that PMCs utilize is somewhat realistic, at least, even with the
Inertia.
stuff. Speaking of realism, field surgery. Fixing a blackened limb in less than 30 seconds via field surgery, utilizing ibuprofen pills that take 20 minutes in the real world to even start kicking in, and having them last only 5 minutes, but nearly instantaneously make it so that your broken leg is something you can sprint on with only the most minor of painful twinges as you sprint on it. Maybe the bottle's mislabeled and it's actually PCP. But where Tarkov does start showing up is in the idea behind being shot in the limb causing problems aiming, moving, seeing, instilling the idea in you as the player that being shot really sucks. You don't ideally want to be hit, ever, especially if that happens without the proper counteracting medications, right? And while sound in Tarkov can be absolutely buggy depending on where it's coming from and where your in-game ears are located, the sound in Tarkov, for the most part, I'd say, is relatively realistic. They have tried time and again to get accurate sounds of gunshots firing inside, outdoors, far away, nearby, and have really accurate sound profiles for the vast majority of things that you can hear. What is not is the idea that someone sitting in a bush can move relatively freely but slowly, or that same person shuffling around slightly in a bush would make little to no sound. And we all know that that's just not true. And how about the food? Since when does somebody have the ability to eat field ration MREs or Iskra lunchboxes a dozen at a clip and not suddenly have major bowel issues? Not realistic, Nicator. Not realistic at all. And finally, we have our combat mechanics. Tarkov wants people to play the game like they're trying to stay alive, thus the hardcore aspect of it. But what about it is really hardcore? In the real world, you die, it's over. Like Diablo 2. When I'm practicing fireball tossing in my backyard, the first thing that I'm thinking about is what happens if a demon dog slays me, you know? In other survival games like Ark, Rust, Conan, Scum, etc., when you die, you lose all of your stuff. In most survival games, it takes an awfully long time for you to amass certain things, all of which is at risk and could be wiped out in a moment's notice because it's all persistently located somewhere on the map. You and your entire base worth of stuff can be raided and ultimately lost. But not in Tarkov. Regardless of what happens to you in Tarkov, you can't completely lose, like in other games of this type. Sure, there's a larger sense of loss, but that loss is really just time-related. I'd argue that the time loss is nowhere near as bad as other survival games can be. In fact, comparatively speaking, this game is pretty damn forgiving. But I digress. You can't die in Tarkov permanently and be forced to start over. So checkmate realists. Now, look, I realize that I make a lot of jokes, okay, and about this, and we all know that I absolutely love this game. But that's really what this is. It's a game. And all of this boils down to Tarkov being a game. Is it realistic? No, not really. Is it closer to realism in terms of combat sim in some regard? Sure, in small places. I'd say this is more hardcore light. You know, like same great taste, but less penalizing calories. It does force you to play a bit slower than you otherwise would in some other fast-paced style games. Apex Legends and COD and Warzone and stuff like that. Like, this game is not, right? But it doesn't necessarily make you play as careful as you would be if you were going to truly lose it all. You don't have to play that smart or that conservative. That, and I don't know of anyone that could suddenly get a burst of neck-breaking speed by simply timing when they leave their feet while they sprint.